So I'm finally getting around to messing with this Kirby vacuum I trash picked off the side of the road a while back. And it's a Kirby Heritage. The fan that's inside it is a little worse for wear. There's a couple nicks in it. It's not horrible, and it's definitely dirty, but I'm going to go ahead and replace it. I got a good enough deal on a brand new kit that I'm just figured I would do it anyways. I am planning on keeping this vacuum. I really like Kirbys. So in order to get to the fan, you have to remove a lot of stuff. Not a lot of stuff, but you have to basically start disassembling the vacuum. The very first thing I'm going to do is remove the bag from the bottom and from the top. We'll set this aside, and then we'll go ahead and remove the beater bar. I just replaced this belt as well. And you'll lift that up, and your beater bar comes right off. As you can see, brand new belt. Set this aside as well. And now we'll go ahead and pull the handle out. So to do that, you just take this pin out, then disconnect the plug. So now we pretty much have full access to the front, and what we're going to have to do is pull off this cover. It's not all that hard to do. There's a few screws holding it on. And so now I have the tools to do this. Got my drill, and you're going to go ahead and remove this screw right here. There's another one on the bottom right here that you'll have to remove, and then these two side screws you'll have to remove as well. So we'll remove this one, and we'll remove the two side screws. I love these magnetic bowls. Those three are removed. So now just to do the bottom one. And then another thing you're going to have to do, I almost forgot to do it. You have to pop that off. Then you're going to have to remove this very carefully. There's three tabs in there, but you don't want to break those. And now you have this screw that's holding the power connector on, so you'll remove that. And before you remove the on-off switch from the half, you'll have to take this screw out in order to get the other half of that assembly out. And that should completely free us up. And there you have it. So now that the half is removed, it's always a good idea to look in there, especially for black widows and stuff like that. We'll throw the half right there. And now I'll show you guys the next part. I'm actually going to blow this out with some compressed air before I completely reassemble it. You guys probably will not see that on camera. And it's always good to look over these connections, because sometimes, you know, they can become dislodged, or, you know, things can get frayed. You always want to look over this stuff when you're into it like this. So now we just have to remove the front part of the case, which, as you can see, there's three screws here. 1, 2, and 3. Countersunk screw right there that we'll remove. Apologize for the neighbor's dog. That took a considerable amount of weight to make that thing come out. So unfortunately, I actually had to use the easy out method. As you guys can see, drill out the screw head. These are the tools I use for that. They work really good until they break, and it doesn't take much to break them. And they're not exactly the cheapest in the world that you can buy, but they do get the job done when they work. So I'll have to end up replacing this screw, unfortunately. And unfortunately, I just had to do the same thing. So now we can go ahead and hopefully pull this cover off. One thing you also want to do that I didn't seem to record on camera, thought I did, was you'll want to remove this. And you'll notice in here, part of this pin right here, that goes right into this switch assembly. So make sure you remove that and reinstall it when the job is done. So after that bit of a screw debacle, we can get on with separating the front face from the case. And in order to do that, just kind of carefully wedge a screwdriver in between the two and pull it out. There you have it. So we'll set that off aside. Now the easy way to get the fan off the shaft, and you'll have to remove this guy here. the best way to do that is, as you can see on this particular model, and I believe on all Kirbys, it has this hole that goes through it. Now I've seen people use a pair of channel locks and they'll get on the outside of it. It doesn't really matter because you're replacing it, but it's got the hole there for a reason. So just grab yourself, you know, like an awl or a pick, or even a proper sized hex key would even work. Stick it on through the hole. And unfortunately, this is one of those instances where you'll have to use channel locks or vice grips to help you out. What's happening is, as I'm trying to loosen this up, the shaft itself of the motor is turning inside of the fan. So hopefully I can put enough force on it here, and it indeed is working. So now we can just go ahead and thread it off by hand. And there you have it. So it's important to essentially look at your stack up. So what came off first is your spindle or shaft. Then you have a small washer, the fan itself, which you might have to wiggle off a little bit. Then inside of the fan, make sure there's no washer attached to it. So we got the fan, and then we got this little coupler right here. We'll throw that off to the side as well. Now again, off camera, I'm going to go ahead and get all of this with some compressed air. You guys don't need to see that. It's simple enough to do it yourself. So I'll just go ahead and get that done off camera. And so now we're ready to go back on with everything. Now if you guys look at this old coupler, you'll see that this end of it is actually pretty thick. And when you compare that with the new one, it's not necessarily the same size. So this one is just a hair taller than this one. And it appears that Kirby anticipated this, as they did include some extra parts with this thing. Namely this rubber seal right here, which don't really need for this one anyways. But they also included an extra washer. I'll go ahead and install that as well. And this is a Kirby branded fan. So we'll go ahead and throw the coupler back in with the new washer. Then we have our new fan. Goes back on and in place. And this had a washer on it, so I throw the washer on. So now you go ahead and throw your new end on. Remember, the threads are reversed. So thread it down all the way, and then it'll start rotating the motor. So what you want to do, so just slide your thumb back there and start turning it. So now we can go ahead and throw it all back together. So as you guys can see, everything is now on and in place. Another point I wanted to make is when you go and reseal this, you want to use just a little tiny amount of RTV or any sort of silicone. Don't even use all that much, just use a little bit. So just a little bit like that. What I'm going to go ahead and do is just, as best I can, evenly spread it out around the outside of the case. And what this does is this prevents dust from entering inside of the case in areas where it's really not supposed to. So now that that's done, we can go ahead and throw that face back on. And what I'm going to do for this is just go ahead and put it back on. So just line everything back up. And so everything's put back on in the back as well. I have no idea if it's off or on right now, so when I plug it in, I'm going to make sure the power strip is unplugged. So now we'll just go ahead and throw the beater bar back on. I'm in the process of completely restoring this thing, so I have a new bump guard on the way. So just throw your beater bar back on. Pretty much goes on the same exact way you took it off. Lock your belt back down. Close your hatch. And we'll throw the handle back on. Handle's now reinstalled. Make sure the lock's out. Plug our cord back in. So now we can go ahead and demonstrate, see if it works. The bag will inflate if the fan's working. So let's go ahead and turn her on. Also, I hope you guys enjoyed this video on how to change this Kirby's fan. Like the description says, this should work on pretty much every model Kirby from the early 80s, maybe even the late 70s on up. It's all pretty much the same setup. So anyways, boys, hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope to help some of you. And rate, comment, subscribe. You all stay classy.